Yo, what's up? Welcome inside the opening line. Corey and Benny on a New York Jet victory Monday. What up, Benny?
Yeah, we don't get to say that too often, and we may not get to say it much more this year. So definitely rocking the Jets hat. You know what? We should talk about this, Corey, because I'm a Jets fan. You're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
Coming into this game, I had zero expectations of a Jet victory.
Yeah.
No, I think most people did. I mean, you look at Vegas. Vegas made a killing this weekend because Dallas was probably one of the most bet on teams this weekend. Yo, you got something you got to do here right now? You're on television at the moment. This is what happens on Columbus Day when the kids have no school. He wakes up, tries to get some Pop-Tarts. This is what happens when they close down Fortnite, Corey. They close down Fortnite, the kid doesn't know what to do with himself anymore.
It's a shirtless child behind you, Benny.
That kid doesn't ever wear clothes, man. I don't know.
Go ahead.
No, but I'm saying, this was one of the biggest, most heavily bet. Dallas was one of the most heavily bet sides this weekend in Vegas. It was one of the biggest ones in teasers. I mean, that was one of my favorites for teasers. I teased them down to one and lost all those teasers. It was one of the higher ones in a lot of the parlays. It was one of the ones that was the most bet on, with the point spread. Wasn't so many people taking Dallas like straight up because, you weren't getting very good odds on it. But Vegas made an absolute killing this, and it wasn't just that game either. Like if you look through this weekend,
more of a public day, Benny. I think yesterday was more of a public day because if you think about it, you had Kansas City was a heavily bet on team yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina was a heavily bet on team yesterday.
Carolina covered, I think, though. Carolina won.
Yep. Seattle was a heavily bet on team yesterday.
Seattle pulled it off. That was a big one for me. That helped me. That helped me not have a horrendous weekend, the Seattle game.
The public was on the Texans yesterday. The public was on the Vikings yesterday. The public was on the Saints yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The stupid ass public was on the Falcons. Was on the Falcons yesterday. They haven't learned about that.
Honestly, I heard. Luckily, I avoided that.
Huh?
Luckily, I avoided that. I had your voice in my head the whole time about not betting on the Falcons, so I avoided that game. I should have actually been on the other side of it, but I stayed away.
I hit yesterday. But yeah, it looked like the public. The past 2 of the last 3 weeks have been public week, a very public week in college football also. But let's start with the Jets and the Cowboys. It's problems in Big D.
Mm-hmm.
They're 3-3, right? Jason Garrett has had 2 of the longest winning streaks in Dallas Cowboy coaching history under his belt. We see 105 yards and a touch from Zeke. Banged up, though. They're banged up offensively. Amari Cooper missed the second half yesterday. By the Jets, you saw what we thought we would see with Sam Darnold as the quarterback. An efficient offense with Le'Veon Bell involved, Robbie Anderson involved, Jamison Crowder involved. And I'm starting to think as these bye weeks are coming up, you may want to put in $1 on Demaryius Thomas.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, he's been out there playing a lot of snaps. He's been seeing a lot of targets. You also got to remember, too, though, Chris Herndon is coming back at some point. I mean, he was out this week. I think he may be out next week, too. He got hurt while he was practicing, to come back from being suspended for, whatever he was suspended for. I think it was, I don't know, positive test or something like that.
Yeah.
But here's my big thing, Corey. I'm not going to say – I mean, the Jets played well yesterday. They looked good. That was the best we've seen them look. Obviously having Sam Darnold under center is a lot better than Luke Falk under center. But I think yesterday is more a problem with your Dallas Cowboys than it was anything great that my Jets did.
Yeah, the defense was poor yesterday. And it just doesn't seem like the coaching is not adding up. Those videos from after the game with the defense walking off the field, not shaking hands with Jason Garrett. Also, some of Des Bryant, somebody who was in that room, commentary on Twitter, talking about how the work week lines up for the Cowboys with stupid, meaningless meetings players absolutely hate going to. Also, he also heard Tony Romo late in the fourth quarter of one of those play calls. Tony Romo said you could tell that Jason Garrett has his fingerprints all over that play. That was not a compliment. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So JG is in trouble. The redhead genius is in trouble.
He is in trouble. But here's the silver lining for Dallas Cowboy fans. The Cowboys are 3-3 right now, and they're 2-0 in division.
Yep.
So right now, technically, they're in first place in the division because the Eagles are also 3-3, and the Eagles are only 1-0 in division. So really, they still have the best chance. Looking through the NFC standings, which was something I was doing this morning, there's only going to be one team that comes out of the NFC East.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of teams right now that are 4-2, 5-1. I mean, you're going to really need – and there's like a couple of them. I think you're going to have to wind up probably 10-6 to get in the playoffs in the NFC this year. So really what it comes down to right now, the game that they play against the Eagles, or the two games that they play against the Eagles, are going to be huge.
Yes, that's the season right there. And one of those games
it really is.
This weekend.
Yeah. Well, the Giants, I mean, even at the moment right now, Giants fans out there, give you guys a little bit of glimmer of hope as well. The Giants are what, 2-4? So the Giants are only really one game out of first place and the AFC or the NFC East Championship and making it to the playoffs. So, if you believe in the Giants, it's not crazy that, they could do it. I mean, they got to – if you beat Dallas, you beat, the Eagles, you could easily be in a tie or be ahead of one of those teams right there. So the NFC East, two teams at 3-3, one team at 2-5, or one team at 2-4, and then the Washington Redskins pulling out the victory to get on the board at 1-5. Even the Redskins technically are only 2 games out of it.
So there you go. It's interesting, but like I said, you got that big matchup next weekend with Dallas and Philadelphia. It's going to be interesting to see how things go in Big D this weekend. Baltimore and Cincinnati. Baltimore gets the W. Lamar Jackson, Benny, this is why I say I'm not taking up my starting lineup unless the other quarterback is Pat Mahomes, and that may not be the best thing right now. 21-33, 235 yards. That's not bad. How about 19 carries for 152 on a touchdown?
Yeah, that's the stat. That's, I mean, listen, he had one of the best days for a running back, and he's not a running back. Exactly. Like, if he didn't throw the ball at all, you still would have been happy with what he gave you because 2 touchdowns and 150 yards is 27 fantasy points.
You know what it is? It's Lamar Jackson. It's Mark Ingram. It's Mark Andrews. When Hollywood comes back, it's him. Nobody else can be trusted.
No, not really. And even Mark Ingram, like, a lot of people were really high. He was 30% owned in the Millie Maker this week, which is crazy to me. I love the matchup. I expected him to have a good game. But my biggest beef with that, Corey, is not only are you getting a bunch of carries for Lamar Jackson, which obviously it means that it's taking some carries away from the running backs, but they're still using Gus Edwards. They're still using Justice Hill. Like, you didn't get this is set up. If this was like a Jacksonville Jaguars game against Cincinnati, it's set up as a 25-touch game for the starting running back. You didn't get all the touches going to Mark Ingram. So as much as I like Mark Ingram, and I got a lot of shares of him in best ball and season long, for daily fantasy, I don't think he has massive upside because they're using a lot of other guys too.
Yep. No doubt. I would agree with you on that. When you look at the other side, the Bengals, it's a shit show, Benny. The running backs, you might as well not even play them at this point. No. The wide receivers do have value with Tate having another big game. Tyler Boyd, not his best performance, but Tyler Boyd will bounce right back next week. We don't know if we're going to see AJ Green in a Bengal uniform this year. They're probably going into full-time tank mode at any moment now. So the Joe Mixon backers, Benny, what are you telling them now?
I mean, he's not droppable, but he's a guy that – let me ask you this question. Tevin Coleman and Joe Mixon. Who do you start?
That's crazy, Benny. I'd probably start Tevin Coleman.
I don't even think it's a question. I think you definitely start Tevin Coleman, especially after yesterday. Tevin Coleman got the lion's share of the snaps over there yesterday, and that he's the he's the goal line guy as well. And the offense is just so much better. Like, that's – I mean, listen, coming into the season, everybody was so happy or so high on Joe Mixon because it was like he's going to get most of, if not all of the carries, and he's still going to get a lot of the passing down work, even though Giovanni Bernard steals some. But this team is just so bad. Like, you can't even really roll him out there. There may be 2 or 3 matchups for the rest of the season where I'm like, all right, this is a Joe Mixon day, but he's not droppable, Corey, but he's definitely not somebody that I want to feel good starting.
He does not stay penciled into your starting lineup.
No.
Neither should any Tampa Bay Buccaneer outside of the 2 wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Godson continuing to get it done. Mike Evans with a big game also. Godson gets in the end zone. No, Godson did not get in the end zone. Ronald Jones is probably the back to own, but there's nothing spectacular about it. We know all of this stuff already.
Yeah.
Another Jameis was
horrendous.
30 of 54, 400 yards, a touchdown, and 5 interceptions.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy-wise, people kind of gloss over the 5 interceptions a little bit because he did throw for 400 yards. So, he had a little bit of a floor, but he did not look good. He did not look good in that game at all. And, 5 interceptions. I mean, listen, there are very few guys who have a leash long enough to throw 5 interceptions, Corey, because most guys are going to get yanked if they're playing that bad. This is what you get sometimes with Jameis. When they have a weak matchup and, some of these wide receivers are making some plays, he can put up numbers, but man, he makes a lot of mistakes and costs his team as much as he helps them.
Yeah, it's tough. And like you said, I think he's in a situation with Arians where Arians is committed. The problem is, I think he's in a situation where Arians is committed to him. The problem is he's not getting any better. No. And we already know what Carolina is, because I kind of want to focus on Tampa. We know what Carolina is. Samuels and Moore had their games yesterday. We saw Olsen bounce back. McCaffrey's probably the best player in football right now.
Not probably. He is, at least fantasy-wise.
Yeah, exactly. He's the best player in football. Well, Russell, I think the best player in fantasy, McCaffrey's the best player. I think the best player in the league is probably Russell Wilson.
Yeah, you can make that argument. That's an argument for another time, but yeah, you can definitely make that argument.
We saw it happen to his boy. They'll always be linked together. Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota. And Mariota, we saw Mariota get benched yesterday. We've seen Winston get benched in the past. I think next year, this time, Winston and Mariota's are backup quarterbacks on different teams.
I would kind of agree with that. Here's the difference this year, though, for me between Winston and Mariota, right? I know Mariota had 1 or 2 decent games where some guys caught some big touchdowns and stuff, but Jameis actually has a ceiling. Jameis can have a game where he throws for 350 and 3 because of the weapons that he has. I don't think Mariota had that. And here's the other thing. Last year with Jameis, you had Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was a competent enough quarterback, a veteran guy that you could have put in there for Jameis when he was having a bad game. They don't really have that this year, but the Titans do. When Mariota's having a bad game, you have a competent veteran backup in Ryan Tannehill that you can throw in there. We're gonna get to that when we talk about that game, but okay. We'll save it for later. But I think fantasy wise, if you have Mariota, I would be very worried right now. If you have Jameis, again, Jameis can still put up a 30-point game for you every now and then. So it's Jameis in best ball is great. If Jameis is the guy you got to rely on every week, I'm not happy about it.
Headache. But I can tell you this. Mariota was quarterback 13 in fantasy going into the weekend. And he was doing it without throwing touchdowns and without throwing for a bunch of yards. And I was like, well, how's he doing it? And it doesn't make a difference because he was benched yesterday. It'll be interesting how that situation plays out. Speaking of Seattle, Russell Wilson and Russell Wilson and the Seahawks got W over the Cleveland Browns. I had put the Browns in the teaser. So, this second half collapse didn't hurt me that much. And the Titans blew up the teaser anyway. No, the Jags blew up the teaser. Minshew magic didn't come through for your boy.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Chris Carson goes crazy like you said he would last week, Benny. Yep. Tyler Lockett, you know who the guys are. And Russell Wilson, obviously the man, too. When you look at Cleveland, Baker with 3 picks. Chubb was great. Odell didn't score, but he got him 6 receptions for 101 yards. It's like Baker is a guy that's going to be talked about all week again this week, and it's not for good reasons.
Yeah, I mean Baker's different though because he's a second-year quarterback, so you're gonna let him go out there and take his lumps, so that you don't have to worry about. Right now, though, Corey, he is I think I saw this stat this morning. He's the 50th ranked quarterback in the league so far this year. Now, remember, still only 32 teams in the league, so there are at least 18 backups that have actually put up better numbers than him. I don't know if it's scheme. It definitely isn't talent because they have a lot of talent around them. The offensive line is obviously an issue, but whatever's going on there in Cleveland, this team is not clicking like a lot of people
He's
thought.
still playing like he played. He resorted to playing because he's scared, because he has no trust in his offensive line. He's resorted to playing the way he plays in college, which is roll out, get to a spot, throw the football. You can't do that in this league. In this league, you have to hang in the pocket. You know what I'm saying? You have to hang in the pocket, get your feet worked together, and throw the football.
I mean, the other thing, too, is like when you're throwing on the run, I don't care who you are. Even the most accurate quarterbacks in the league are less accurate when they're throwing on the run. And, the other thing is if you're running, your eyes aren't downfield seeing who's coming open and when they're making their breaks and, and doing all that. So it's just, offensive line play is one of the most underrated things in the NFL. Just look at how much better the Colts were when their offensive line got good and they were able to protect their quarterback and make some holes in the running game. The way I'm looking at this, Corey, the guy I want to own on Cleveland, and literally the only guy I really want to own on Cleveland going forward from here is Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
Chubb is a beast.
That's the only way that they're going to win football games is by pounding the run and giving it to Chubb. So he's the guy that I have the most interest in on Cleveland.
Houston and Kansas City. This was a goodie yesterday. Took another L on this one. I had a rough weekend, Benny. Took another L on this one. Pat Mahomes, 1935, 273, 3 touchdowns, that pick. But they went quiet in the second half. There is no running game to speak of. This team misses Kareem Hunt sorely. And not only do they miss Kareem Hunt, all of a sudden Travis Kelce is not getting involved as much also. So you're looking at different times in Kansas City. Benny, last year this was the great revolutionary offense. We've seen flashes of that this year, but for the most part, this is a 4-2 team with 2 losses in Arrowhead, where they never lose.
Yep. And they
got Tyreek Hill back, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. That's that was nice yesterday. That helped a couple of my best ball teams because I had him in there. So Pat Mahomes for the last 3 weeks has failed to put up over 20 fantasy points, which is something that he almost never did. He was like 25, 30 fantasy points. The beginning of the year, he had like a 30-point floor where even at 7,500, you were just throwing him in your DraftKings lineups. Again, I mean, it's not the big thing is kind of the touchdown regression, which a lot of people said was going to happen this year because he threw so many last year. I mean, he still had like 300 yards in all these recent games for the most part. He just hasn't been doing 350 and 4 touchdowns, like putting up those just monster ceiling kind of games. I mean, again, he's Pat Mahomes. You're still going to start him if you have him. Like, he's there. But I would even go so far, Corey, before when you were like, unless I have Patrick Mahomes, I'm starting Lamar Jackson.
You would say start Lamar Jackson as QB1?
I honestly think – I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not dropping Mahomes further than probably 2, maybe 3 right now at the worst-case scenario.
Jackson, Mahomes, Watson.
Dude, I because their defense sucks so much, I love your boy Matt Ryan too, which is one of your best preseason calls. Every week it's 300 yards like clockwork,
Yeah, the Matt Ryan. So yeah, it's right. It's Watson, Jackson, Mahomes, Ryan, and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that's the 5. That's the 5 guys. That's the 5 guys that seem to be making a lot of my daily fantasy lineups recently. That's
a good job. Matt Ryan got it done again yesterday.
Yeah. Saved me yesterday. All my cash games. Matt Ryan, I think it was a 350 and what do you have? 350 and 3 or 350 and 4?
3 and probably 3 interceptions too. But you don't have to worry about those. Carson Wentz yesterday, 40 passes. You never wanted the Eagles throwing 40 times. He throws 2 touchdowns. Jordan Howard got it growing on the ground game. Miles Sanders with 3 receptions for 86 yards and a touch. That was big. Alshon Jeffrey also coming through as well as Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. The thing about these numbers are, Benny, this is not the game Philadelphia wants to play.
No.
It's throwing it 40 times, so it's an aberration. But good to see some good things from Jeffrey and Sanders and Goddard also as well. On the other side, Kirk Cousins was about as good as you can get, Benny. 22 of 29, 333, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, when you connect on 2 50-yard touchdown passes to Stephon Diggs, your numbers are going to be good. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't – this whole game is a game that I wouldn't put too much stock in going forward.
I agree.
Yeah, because, I mean, I don't think that Minnesota was a little pass-heavy and had a lot of success here because we know that the Eagles secondary sucks. So it made sense, but it's not how Minnesota wants to play. Minnesota wants to – Dalvin Cook had a horrible game yesterday because they were so pass heavy and because it was such a bad matchup, which we kind of talked about is that, his upside is not as great against that Philly team. Going forward, though, I think they're going to try to get back to the run. Maybe not the 10 attempts that they had in week one, but they don't want Kirk Cousins throwing the ball as the way that they run their offense. And the same thing on the Philly side. I like Carson Wentz, but like you said, they don't want Carson Wentz throwing the ball 40 times. That's not how Philly wants to play. So when you look at the numbers, when you look at the receptions, the targets, everything from this game, it's nice. Just don't put too much stock in it being the same moving forward, because this was a game that just perfectly set up for them.
What I'll say is this about Kirk Cousins. This is how Kirk Cousins plays.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia at home is the game where Kirk Cousins is going to shine.
Yep.
Next week, when they go to Detroit, that's the game where Kirk Cousins is going to struggle. But the key thing about it is they're not paying him $84 million to beat the Eagles. They're paying him to beat the Lions, the Packers, and the Bears. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem with Kirk Cousins.
Well, the other problem with Kirk Cousins is they really paid him $84 million because he was supposed to be the missing piece on a good defense with a lot of skill position players around him. Instead, he's just been like just a guy. Yeah. And maybe even less than just a guy, Corey. He might even be like less than a league average quarterback. You don't pay $84 million to a guy and expect him to be a league average quarterback. You pay him $84 million, you expect him to be leading you to the promised land. And I'm not sure if Kirk Cousins can do that.
Teddy Bridgewater keeps it rolling yesterday down there in Jacksonville, Duval. Mike Thomas, 8 for 89. Alvin Kamara, he gets his numbers too. 7 receptions, had 11 rushes. I had a big bet on this game on Jacksonville. I love Jacksonville coming in this game. That bet was sealed against me by a touchdown from Jared Cook. And once again, Jared Cook finds a way to screw me all the time. Even without him being on my fantasy teams, Jared Cook figures out a way to stick a foot in my ass, Benny.
Yeah, I actually didn't hate him. I wrote him up in the tight end article this week because Traquan Smith was out. So I figured there was going to be a little bit more, targets to kind of go around here. Also figured it was a little bit of a tougher matchup on the outside for Xavier Rhodes this week. But, hey, no Jalen Ramsey. He wound up not playing, so wound up being, a pretty easy day for Mike Thomas as well. Listen, I was on the Jaguars too. I like this Jaguars team. The Jaguars offense let him down this week.
They really did.
Yeah, the defense did enough to win that football game. The offense didn't do enough to win it.
One thing that we see with this Saints team with Bridgewater in command, as I said it last week, I reiterated it again this week. It is very simple. It is Alvin Kamara and it is Mike Thomas. And that's it. Don't worry about anything else over there. Minshew magic comes to an end this week. Leonard Fournette, big Leonard still getting it done. No, over 100 yards total offense for him. No touchdowns. Don't score anybody in this game. But our buddy DJ Chalk didn't do much. D.D. Westbrook, no love for anybody else either really, as the New Orleans Saints defense kind of held them in check.
Yeah, like I said, New Orleans defense is what won this game. I mean, it was a low-scoring game. They held the Jacksonville offense down. Leonard Fournette, to me, is a guy that you play every week, basically just on volume, right? Like on volume alone, he's somebody that you play every week. He didn't have a good game. He didn't get in the end zone, but the guy's seeing like 20 touches a game right now all the time, Corey, like 15-plus carries and 5 or 6 targets. Like the volume is definitely there for Leonard Fournette. Is he doing what like a Dalvin Cook or a Christian McCaffrey's doing with the volume? No, but, guys like him, guys like Le'Veon Bell, guys like David Johnson, if these guys are going to see as many touches as they do, both running and passing and, catching, they're every week starts basically.
Jimmy G and the Niners going to the Rams to get a big W. 49ers undefeated on the season, getting wins on the road and everything in the division. Tevin Coleman and Matt Breida is officially the two-headed monster in the backfield. Coleman gets in the end zone yesterday. We get the big George Kittle game, and that's what a lot of people was looking for, and they finally got it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Kittle hasn't been bad all season. He's leading their team in targets. I think he's leading them in receptions and yards as well. He's seeing 7-8 a game. Again, maybe it's not as many as he saw last year because instead of losing, they're winning a lot more of these games. So they're doing a little more running, especially in the second half. But yeah, Kittle's still an every week start. If you have him, you just pencil him in there. And, other than the bye week, which already passed for San Francisco, there's no reason not to have Kittle in your lineup. I will say this, though. One thing that I noticed looking at the snap counts and stuff from after that game, I don't know if it again, I don't want to jump the gun and say this is the way it's going to be going forward, but it was more like 70-30 Coleman versus Breida as opposed to 50-50. Last week it was a little more 50-50. So like I said, I don't want to jump the gun, but just keep an eye on it. If you ask me one of those two backs for the rest of the season, to me, I think I definitely want to have Tevin Coleman over Breida.
It's interesting because it's familiarity with both players, but it definitely does seem to be a commitment to Tevin Coleman. As soon as Tevin Coleman was healthy, he went right back in, and he's getting the full complement of snaps and stuff like that. We're still waiting on Debo. You can't put him in your lineup. If you got the real estate to continue to hold, do so. If you don't, I understand.
Dante Pettis actually saw a big uptick in snaps and targets and stuff this week. So that again, I got to dig a little deeper into the snaps and see where they came from and who was actually losing them. But it does seem like Deebo Samuels at the beginning of the year was the guy that I was like, all right, he's their number one. Now I think I don't think they have a number one. I think the problem is there's like 4 number 3s. You know what I mean? That's kind of the usage.
Kyle Shanahan just running offense out there.
Yeah.
That's all he's really doing. Jared Goff is who I thought he was. I don't want to say we because I was heavily criticized for my commentary on Jared Goff last season. But this guy's a stiff.
They didn't even throw for 100. That offense without Todd Gurley last week, I mean, they couldn't run the ball. Malcolm Brown didn't do nothing. I don't even think they threw for 100 yards.
Nope.
I could be wrong, but right? Didn't Goff have under 100 yards?
Yeah, 78 yards passing.
God, that's so bad. Like I had a little bit of Cooper Kupp in there, and I played Malcolm Brown because of his price on a team or two in daily. They just sucked, man. And now again, I also want to give credit. We talk all the time about San Francisco's defense being legit.
No doubt.
I want to give them credit. We've already seen the Rams put up 400 or 500 yards of offense. So shutting them down like they did yesterday, San Francisco deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, man, that offense did not look good at all.
Atlanta Falcons, they find new ways. They continue to find ways to help bettors out. As they missed extra point is the cause this time, Benny. Matt Ryan was legit. Devontae Freeman looked good. Austin Hooper went off. Julio Jones went off. Calvin Ridley did his thing. This is great. If they're on your fantasy team, if you're a fan of this team, you got to be hitting the roof right now.
Yeah, I mean, fantasy-wise, you got some big days. I mean, this was probably the best game for Devonta Freeman all season. He put up like 25 people. Yeah, I think he had 25, 26 PPR points yesterday. Austin Hooper, we talk about all the time. Whenever you play Arizona, tight ends have been dominating them. Hooper being a guy that sees targets all the time. That was a great matchup there. So here's the thing about Matt Ryan, right? Because the defense sucks so bad, every game they need to put up 35 points. I mean, I made this comment last week, and I still stand by it. The 2019 Falcons are the 2018 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like they give up so many points that they're going to have to just keep throwing the ball. Go look at Matt Ryan's stat. I don't know if people realize, like Matt Ryan is literally throwing for 300 yards and a couple touchdowns every game.
No, Matt Ryan's going crazy. He's going crazy right now. And it's because of it's like that Blake Bortles year. But he's a better player than Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, MVP level player. But it's just that volume in these late in the games. The Falcons always come out in these games. The first thing they do, they score first. They always score first, and then the defense it's just the floodgates are open. Kyler Murray goes off yesterday. Kyler Murray, his best day as a pro, 340, 3 touchdowns. Larry Fitzgerald, David Johnson, Chase Edmonds. The whole crew got involved yesterday as the Cardinals get a 1-point home victory.
Atlanta's a team for the rest of the season, Corey, that I'm going to be stacking against in DFS, and a team that if you have any guys on your team in season long and it's, this guy plays whoever and this guy plays Atlanta, take the guy who plays Atlanta. That defense is that bad.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. And Dan Quinn, he runs the defense. So Dan Quinn needs to start updating his resume. Ryan Tannehill and Marcus Mariota combined to be a shit show yesterday. With 3 picks between the two of them. Derrick Henry, 28 yards rushing.
Yeah, he didn't do much.
This is Benny. This is Thursday night. This is Thursday night FCS football, son. You know what I'm saying? What the fuck is this, Benny?
So the thing that I looked up basically for about an hour this morning while, I was doing research because to me, it was the biggest question of the day. And I don't have an answer for anybody yet on it, Corey, is whether they sat Marcus Mariota. Well, obviously they sat him because he sucked last game, but is this the beginning of, all right, we're going to make a change? Or is this just one of those situations like Tampa Bay last year where, Jameis comes out and plays well, he gets to play. And if he doesn't, then we're going to bring in the old veteran and Tannehill like they did last year with Fitz. And the reason why I ask is because that sucked last year, if you remember that.
Yeah.
There were times where, people started Jameis in fantasy or used him in daily, and he got yanked in the third quarter. I can't. I mean, again, I don't play Marcus Mariota anyway, but
You should.
I wouldn't want to touch this at all right now.
On the other side, it's not as better. You know what I'm saying? We saw Kareem. We saw Cortland Sutton get four catches for 76 yards. He's emerged as the one. Emmanuel Sanders leaves that game with an injury. Phil Lindsay's still clearly the man in the backfield, and Joe Flacco is one step ahead of Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the only two guys that are playable on this team right now are Cortland Sutton, and he's like a wide receiver 3 flex guy at best because, not because of him. I like his talent, but because of the quarterback play they have. And then I do like Philip Lindsay way more than I like Royce Freeman. The problem is Denver doesn't. Denver is still kind of giving both of these guys touches. So I like Lindsay, but Lindsay's another one where at best to me, he's kind of like a flex option.
No doubt. Right quick before we get to before we talk about this and get to Monday night and talk a little baseball, the Jets with Darnold back. Crowder is back in the mix, Anderson back in the mix, and you like Thomas and Herndon too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think you can start looking at all these guys if they're on the waiver wire or, if people are willing to get rid of them. I think you're going to have to overpay for Robbie Anderson because people use high draft picks on him.
No doubt.
Crowder's a guy that was like, again, I picked him up after we talked about him in 10th, 12th, 15th round, somewhere around there. If you're willing to trade, if you're trying to trade for somebody on the Jets right now, I think Crowder is the target, with Demaryius Thomas being the guy you should be targeting off the waiver wire.
Pittsburgh and Los Angeles. The Kid Hodges gets the victory, got a big help from the defense. Benny Snell Jr., 17 carries for 75 yards. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I dropped Snell Jr. in the league yesterday morning.
Mm-hmm.
James Conner gets seven catches for 78 yards and a touch. Juju, 1 for 7. Smith-Schuster owners got to be scratching their heads right now, especially the dudes that pulled them up to the first late in August. On the other side, it was good to see Hunter Henry get back and get 2 scores. Slow night for Keenan Allen. Big Mike Will gave you 13 in the PPR. Eckler was a donut, and so was Melvin Gordon.
So there's a lot to talk about here, right? So let's start with the Pittsburgh side. Other than James Conner, I'm not really going to want anybody on Pittsburgh because if you got a third-string quarterback in there, I just don't see any of these guys having upside. And we saw that yesterday. To me, Juju Smith-Schuster is one of the most talented wide receivers in the league. But it's a third-string quarterback who I think only threw for like 150 yards yesterday. Like there wasn't a lot of production, but they didn't really need it. They actually had a big lead. I also think the Benny Snell thing was because they had that big lead early. They got the defensive touchdown on the swing pass. That was a backwards pass that they walked in from like the 10-yard line. And then I think they got an interception on the next play. So like the final score of this game was a lot closer than this game was, Corey. Like if you watched it, I started watching it and then I switched over to baseball and I had it on the little TV and I didn't even watch it for the most part. And then I saw the late touchdown that made it like kind of interesting. And I was like, ooh, let me see what's going on over here. But for the most part, Steelers were in control of this game from start to finish. And really the only guy that was kind of productive for me was James Conner. Those Benny Snell carries came a lot when they kind of had the big lead already. And with Conner being a little banged up, I think they just kind of wanted to take it easy on him because they didn't really need him. But to me, James Conner is the only guy that's viable here.
Yeah, it's tough with that offense in that situation, like you said, with that third string quarterback.
Oh, wait, let me talk about the other side for a second.
Go ahead.
Melvin Gordon is horrendous right now. And the thing that really annoys me is Austin Eckler was playing phenomenal.
I know.
Austin Eckler yesterday saw couple targets. I think he had 3 catches for 14 yards and 5 carries for 14 yards. So he had like 30 yards of total offense and, like 8 touches. When he was getting 20 touches earlier in the year, he was putting up 25, 30 fantasy points. Melvin Gordon, the guy doesn't want to be there. You're stuck paying him. To me, Melvin Gordon rides the bench right now if I'm the Chargers, because in 2 games with Melvin Gordon as their running back, their offensive output has gone down. Their points per game have gone down. Basically, across the board, every offensive stat you can look at is worse with Melvin Gordon there. I don't know why you're kissing this guy's ass knowing that he's not going to be back next year.
All right.
Well, again, if you're going to pay him, then pay him and bring him back next year. But has anything that he's done in the last 2 weeks since he's came back, or anything that he's done this season, holding out and being a douche, a reason why you want to pay this guy? To me, he's going to be gone next year, and he's not productive. So why are we even playing him?
They're going to try to franchise him next year.
Again, why?
Sit out again. You're right. Is he only going to do is sit out again? Yeah.
But even if he doesn't sit out, it's not like the guy's productive. Austin Eckler gives you more than Melvin Gordon does right now.
Right now, yeah, but I think Melvin Gordon's a better player than Austin Eckler. I
really don't at this moment.
Okay. No doubt. They were talking about Austin Eckler's draft class yesterday. It was an amazing draft class that Eckler was in. He was one of the overlooked guys, but he is definitely coming to the league and done his thing. Mm-hmm. All right, tonight, Benny, we got Lions and Packers and Tigers and Bears. Oh, my. Game is in Green Bay. Packers laying 3.5 minus 180. Detroit Lions catching 3.5 plus 156. I love the Lions here.
Yeah, I like the Lions side of this too. There's no Devontae Adams this game. And if you looked at what happened last game, it's not like Green Bay could really pass the ball. I mean, I think there was 6 targets for Geronimo Allison, who I'm actually happy about. No Devontae Adams. I mean, Allison should get snaps and probably see some targets.
I'm going to need him to score 70 points for me to win, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. I have him in a couple best balls too. So, get me to 12, 13 fantasy points. You're going to wind up on my, my weekly best ball roster. So I'd be happy with that. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 4 targets last week. Yeah, they're not going to throw the ball. They're going to try to pound the run. They get Jamal Williams back, so we're not going to get as big a game from Aaron Jones, but I still think it's a good Aaron Jones spot here. I don't see Green Bay being able to throw the ball to win this game. I just don't see it. They're going to have to win this game with the run and keep it on the ground. So really, I mean, Aaron Jones to me is still the best play here. I think Jamal Williams is in play for some of these, fantasy things tonight. I'm not going to chase the hell's the tight end's name? I'm not chasing Jimmy Graham. I know he had 3 catches, 3 targets last week, but he does nothing for me. For me, I mean, I really want to be on a running game side of Green Bay, and I think you can kind of look at the entire. I think Detroit's offense is better. Green Bay's defense is probably better, but I think Detroit's defense is good enough to slow down a banged-up Green Bay team. Without Devontae Adams, I don't think people realize how big Devontae Adams is for that offense.
Aaron Jones rushing and receiving, Benny, 101.5.
What is this rushing prop? 101.5? Is that what you said?
Rushing and receiving, 101.5.
Now, again, last week he had such a huge game because Jamal Williams wasn't in there. Mm-hmm. So you got to kind of temper the expectations a little bit. I don't think that's a crazy number, but I got to be honest, I'm probably not taking it.
No doubt. Allison receptions, 3.5.
That's about where it should be. I mean, last week he saw 6 targets. I think he made 3 or 4 catches. That's about where it should be. I don't know if Darius Slay's playing. Is Darius Slay good?
He is playing, yes.
All right, so he's probably going to be – see, I'm trying to think here. How do they do this? Like, does Allison play more of the Devontae Adams role when they go –
Scanling will Allison will play. No, Allison to be in the slot. Scanling to play more than Devontae Adams' role.
Okay, so then in that case, Allison is probably the guy you want to lean to if Valdez-Scantling is going to be on the outside with Darius Slay. That's a tough matchup. That's the one you always want to go away from. So
no doubt.
Allison at 3.5, I think, is probably a decent option.
Kerryon Johnson, 72.5 rushing yards.
Rushing? What's his total yardage prop?
Do I have a total yards for KJ? Come down to this end right here. I believe I did see it. 92.5.
I like that more than I like the 72 rushing because I have a feeling that it's going to be a little bit easier to get some yards out of the backfield for him. catching passes than it is running. I don't want to rely on him running. The only way he gets to that 72, Corey, in my opinion, is if Detroit is kind of blowing them out and just kind of pounding the run late in the game.
To score a touchdown, Kerryon Johnson, 130. Galladay, 175. Marvin Jones, 185. Hockenson, 290. Any of those?
Galladay would be the one I like the most, I think.
Okay.
What was he, 175?
Yes.
And what was Jones, 180?
Marvin Jones, 185.
I didn't look deep enough into it, but it would probably be one of those two. I'll have to look at the cornerback matchups and stuff like that. For any of you who signed up for Elite Fantasy, I will have the Monday, Thursday article coming out tonight. Not completely done with it, as you can tell by, me talking right now. But I'll have a thought on that in that article. So make sure you get over to Elite Fantasy and read that article. And you'll find out which one of those I like the best.
Aaron Jones, minus 120. Valdez-Scantling, 160. Allison, 180. Jimmy Graham, 220. Jamal Williams, 330. I would actually take Jimmy Graham at 220 if I was laying this, which I'm not.
I mean, minus 120 for Aaron Jones to score one?
Yeah.
That's not bad. And plus 330 for Jamal Williams to score one, I don't think is bad either.
I agree with you on those. Let's get to some baseball before we get out of here tonight. We got Flaherty and Strasburg down there in D.C., Benny. 132, the Nats are the favorites. The total is 7.
Yeah, two really good pitchers on the mound. It's in D.C., Strasburg. I'd probably go with DC here, although I do like Flaherty a lot. You know what? I'm going to say this, Corey. I'm not betting this game, but if you told me I had to bet on it, I would probably lean the DC side.
All right, big piece of chicken. Mine goes to Lamar Jackson, Benny. Another almost 400 yards of total offense yesterday. What you got?
Yeah, I'm going to give mine actually to Chris Carson. I mean, this is a guy who I was high on, used him in cash games, had a lot of them in tournaments, and have a lot of exposure to him in my best ball stuff. So Chris Carson having a big week. Didn't get the 2 touchdowns, so I didn't get that 2 touchdown prop. But he did have over 100 yards, and he did have a touchdown, and, he performed kind of the way I thought he was going to perform. So big shout-out to Chris Carson. Helped me make some money this weekend.
No doubt. All right, so my main man, Benny, is Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. Opening line, we are out.